You ever just feel completely overwhelmed? Like trying to make sense of all the news, all the information flying around about the future?
Oh, definitely.
Especially, when it hits close to home, our money, our jobs, even just feeling like the world is stable or not.
Yeah.
It's really tough sometimes to figure out what actually matters, what's just noise, isn't it?
It really is. There's so much coming at us constantly.
Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We're taking a deep dive into this really interesting mix of sources you sent over.
Hmm.
You get some economic analysis, some geopolitical stuff, all kinds of perspectives.
Right.
And the mission really is to cut through all that noise. We want to pull out the key insights, give you a kind of shortcut to understanding the big forces shaping things.
Sort of a framework.
Exactly. A framework for navigating what seems like, well, pretty chaotic times ahead. We're talking financial disruption, big tech changes, political instability. It's all in there.
Yeah, sounds like a lot, but it connects.
Yeah, and we're going to uncover some pretty surprising things along the way, like what's the deal with gold now? What happens to jobs when AI gets even bigger?
And supply chains.
Right, global supply chains, and even things like international diversification. Some interesting angles there.
It is striking, isn't it, how these different threads, money, tech, politics, trade, they really do weave together. It paints a picture, maybe not a comfortable one always, but a coherent one.
Okay, so where should we start? Maybe with the basics. Money and banking.
Sounds good. The foundation.
All right. So it's fascinating, right? We hear all this talk about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs.
Mm-hmm. Constantly.
But what do these sources say about good old-fashioned gold? Does it still have a role, especially like for private deals or maybe even international trade?
Yeah, that's a key point in the analysis. The thinking is that gold probably will keep its value for those kinds of uses.
Mhm.
Private transactions, maybe settling big international trades, even with digital currencies popping up.
And what about owning it personally? Is there a worry, according to these sources, that governments might crack down?
Well, they doubt a sort of global ban on owning gold. That seems unlikely.
Okay.
But there's a perspective that we could see restrictions, maybe more likely in Western countries.
Ah, so a split.
Exactly, a divergence. While some places might move towards more digital control, the expectation is gold will stay pretty liquid, pretty tradable in Asia and other markets. It points to, different economic philosophies clashing a bit globally.
That makes sense. Different regions, different rules. So gold's not dead, just maybe shifting its geography.
Something like that, yeah. Now, beyond gold, what about just regular international banking? Is it still feasible for folks looking to diversify? You hear so much about compliance getting tougher.
Right, the paperwork, the regulations.
Yeah, but the sources, they indicate banks outside your home country are still open to foreigners. It's harder, yes, more hoops to jump through.
But not impossible.
Not impossible. They actually specifically mention their October conference in Uruguay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and a big focus there is exactly these strategies for international diversification, including, which banks are options and how to navigate it.
Right.
So it signals that, yeah, it's more regulated, but there are still pathways if you know where to look and how to approach it. Strategic avenues exist.
That's practical. Good to know. So it takes work, but diversification is still on the table.
Seems so.
Now, shifting gears a bit, but related to this whole global picture,
Yep.
what about the actual stuff? The physical goods moving around. The sources mention shortages, medical parts, industrial components. They say it's not just random incidents. What's the deeper story?
This is a really critical point they make. They argue it's not just bad luck or temporary glitches. It reflects a deeper, more systemic kind of chaos.
Systemic chaos. How so?
Well, think about tariffs, political uncertainty, geopolitical tensions.
Okay.
They argue this stuff is basically paralyzing businesses. Like, imagine you run a company, you need a specific part from overseas, but you have no idea what tariffs might hit next month. Or if some political flare-up will just shut down that shipping route.
You can't plan.
Exactly. You can't commit to those big long-term orders. So you hold back. And that hesitation, multiplied across thousands of businesses, it stalls production. It creates these shortages that ripple outwards.
Wow. Okay, so it's the uncertainty itself causing the problem.
That's a big part of it. And this leads to a concept they introduce, which is pretty sobering. They call it the Greater Depression.
Whoa. Okay. Greater Depression. That sounds intense. How is that different from, the Great Depression we think of from history?
It's a crucial distinction they make. The 1930s depression was largely about a lack of money. People didn't have the cash to buy things, even if goods were technically available.
Right. Deflation, unemployment.
Yeah, this Greater Depression
Hmm.
concept. They define it as a crisis, where the problem isn't just money, but the actual physical availability of essential goods collapses.
So, like, you might have the money, but the shelves are empty.
Precisely. Think medical supplies, key industrial parts, maybe even certain foods. The argument is this scarcity stems directly from these broken, unreliable global supply chains we were just talking about.
That is a stark picture. Scarcity of things. It really reframes what a major economic crisis could look like.
It does. It shifts the focus from purely financial metrics to the real-world flow of goods.
Okay, that's a lot to think about on the supply side. Now, another huge disruption mentioned is technology, specifically AI and automation. What are the sources predicting there, especially for like office jobs, white-collar work?
The prediction is pretty blunt, actually. They see AI rapidly eliminating a lot of white-collar jobs.
Rapidly.
Yeah. They use this really vivid analogy. They compare it to how mechanization just wiped out small-scale farming back in the 19th century.
Wow, that was a fundamental shift.
A huge disruptive shift.
Yep.
And they see something similar coming for many office-based roles. Now, they don't just leave it there. They talk about their new book, The Preparation.
Okay, so there are solutions, or strategies at least.
Strategies, yeah. Ways to try and future-proof yourself against this AI wave.
And what does that look like? Is it about learning to code or?
Less about specific skills, though that helps,
Right.
and more about a mindset. They really emphasize things like flexibility, adaptability.
Being willing to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And continuous self-education, constantly learning new things, upgrading your own capabilities so you stay relevant as AI takes over more routine tasks.
So it's about personal resilience, building your own capacity to adapt.
That's the core idea. Staying agile in a world that's changing incredibly fast. It feels more critical than ever, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, so massive changes in work, potential scarcity of goods.
Hmm.
With all this disruption, where do the sources suggest putting resources? Strategically investing. Are there key themes?
Yes, they identified two dominant investment themes right now. First, unsurprisingly, is AI itself.
Right.
And the second is global trade restructuring. As supply chains shift, new opportunities and risks emerge.
Makes sense. And within AI, are they talking big tech generally or something more specific?
They seem particularly bullish on niche high-tech companies,
Mhm.
the ones really building the specialized tools and platforms for the AI revolution.
So the companies enabling AI?
Kind of, yeah.
Right.
But, and this is important, they also stress caution. It's a volatile sector, lots of risks alongside the potential rewards.
Eyes wide open then.
Definitely. They mention that specifics are in their crisis investing service for those who want the details.
Got it. Okay, let's pivot to geopolitics. That often feels like the elephant in the room driving so much of this uncertainty.
Hmm.
The sources make this pretty bold claim that strongman politics is just beginning, not ending with any single leader. That sounds concerning. What do they actually mean by strongman politics?
Yeah, it's a heavy statement.
Yeah.
When they use that term, they're describing a broader global trend. It's about leaders who gain and hold power through a very centralized, often personality-driven approach.
Bypassing institutions.
Often, yeah. Weakening traditional checks and balances like courts or legislatures. Relying more on personal loyalty, projecting an image of strength. It's less about specific policies and more about how power is wielded.
And they say this is a trend, not just about one person.
Exactly. They even draw this parallel to ancient Rome's shift from a republic to an empire, suggesting it's a systemic change in governance, not just a temporary phase tied to current figures.
Wow, that's a historical comparison.
It is. And they add another layer. Succession. What happens after these strong leaders? History suggests it rarely goes smoothly. That creates, another vector of instability to watch.
Future instability baked in.
Potentially. They even point to something specific, like the talk, however serious, about putting Trump's face on a $500 bill. They frame that as an example of this big man cult politics, a worrying sign, in their view, of this larger trend.
Okay, so it's a pattern to watch globally, not just in one country.
That seems to be the argument.
All right, one last specific piece before we tie it all together. Uruguay. The sources mention Uruguay real estate as a plan B. Why Uruguay specifically?
Well, what's interesting in their analysis is who's buying there now. Traditionally, it was mostly Argentines, maybe Brazilians.
Neighbors.
Right. But now they're seeing growing interest from Europeans and North Americans. That diversifies the demand.
Ah, so it's not just regional anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And connecting that back to everything else we've discussed, the instability, the uncertainty in the West.
Okay, I see.
Uruguay property is being viewed as like a tangible hedge, a physical asset outside the traditional Western systems as part of an international diversification strategy, a concrete plan B.
A place to park assets, maybe even yourself if things get rough elsewhere.
That seems to be the appeal they're highlighting.
Okay, so let's try to pull these threads together. We've hit on financial disruption, gold, international banking changes, then technological upheaval, AI, the future of work, and political instability, strongman politics, shifting trade, supply chain chaos.
Yeah, the sources really do synthesize all these elements. They're presented not as separate issues, but as interconnected features of the chaotic times we seem to be entering.
They define the era almost.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
And the solutions proposed kind of mirror this interconnectedness.
Right. What were those again?
It boils down to being intentional about international diversification, not just financially, but maybe even physically.
Like the Uruguay example.
Exactly. Then proactively preparing for the changes AI will bring to work and society. That adaptability piece.
Continuous learning.
And finally, strategic investing. Aligning your investments with these big shifts like AI and trade restructuring while managing the risks.
So it's about being deliberate, being adaptable, and diversifying.
That's the core message coming through. A deliberate approach to a world that feels increasingly unpredictable.
Okay, so just to recap the main strategies from these sources for you listening for navigating all this. Number one, intentional international diversification. Think broader than just your home country.
Right. Number two, proactively prepare for AI's impact. Flexibility, continuous learning are key.
And number three, strategic investing focused on these major trends like AI and trade shifts, but carefully.
Absolutely.
So here's maybe a final thought to leave you with based on everything we've dug into today.
Okay.
Given these converging trends, the financial shifts, the tech upheaval, the political instability, what does being truly prepared actually mean for you personally in a world where change feels like the only constant?
That's the real question, isn't it?
Yeah. How might understanding these specific patterns we've talked about actually shape how you think about your own resources, your career, your long-term plans?
Definitely something to mull over, a lot to consider.
Indeed. Something to think about until our next deep dive.